those. It's also on this handout. There's about 30 of these I got. So 8233333. And the handouts and the cards at the front table for folks who come in sometimes that would be so that's where you would get police response. The police have a priority queue system that allows them to prioritize the kinds of calls that are coming in so that they can address issues in the most expedient manner. When you call non-emergency and it's an actual non-emergency, that's the lowest priority call. So the police assist you when they have no other higher priority calls to attend. So it does take some time in many cases to get police response when you call non-emergency, but they will be there when they can get there. So, Lieutenant Fort, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Do you have anything else to add about calling non-emergency and getting police response? Or?
No, if you guys have specific questions about when you should be calling and when not to, but Jacob's right. I mean, generally the 911 calls are for emergencies, like true emergencies where you need immediate police or fire or medical assistance. And the non-emergency ones are ones that could be handled in due course that don't need to be handled right this second. There's some pretty, I was reading this handout as he was speaking, there's some pretty good information and examples about when to call which number. I think it is important to not get frustrated if you don't know what to call and you do wind up calling 911. The operator within a few short seconds will figure out if it's not an emergency, and they'll redirect you or tell you to call the non-emergency number. So they'll help you out. I mean, right, it does say on here if you're not sure, if somebody's walking around and they're trying to get into a car or trying to break into something and you're not sure if that's, you need the police right then, is it a crime, is it not? If you're not sure, call 911. 911 operators will help you out and decide if it's something that needs immediate assistance or if it's something that you can call the non-emergency number for.
Right, and that's a key, thank you for saying that, Lieutenant Ford. That's a key point, which is that if you call one number and it's determined that it's not the right number to call, that's fine. They'll tell you to hang up and call the other number and just do that. So they can't transfer you from 911 to non-emergency because that ties up one of the trunk lines for 911. So if 911 tells you, hey, this is a non-emergency call, you need to hang up and call non-emergency, just hang up and call 823-3333. Stay on the line with the 911 or non-emergency operator until they're done talking with you and they'll let you know when it's okay to hang up. That's another piece I wanted to mention. They will be clear about that. So, and then lastly, when you're speaking with them, it's important to give them, and this is getting a little bit into this handout, the reporting suspicious and criminal activity. It's important to describe what you're seeing and be factual. So they're going to ask you a series of questions, some of which may seem like the answers are obvious to you, but they don't have that information and they need that information to give to the police. So please, or to fire in some cases. So please just be patient and answer their questions as they come. When you're reporting suspicious and criminal activity, the key takeaway I want you to have from this is to identify things that are unique to the person that you're describing and the kind of behavior you're seeing. So it's more important that you describe things like, I'm seeing people handing off small bags in exchange for money. I'm seeing someone with a neck tattoo. I'm seeing someone who's short, fat, and has a large nose, and no beard, that kind of thing. So, it's important that you describe the kinds of things you're seeing that are things that either are behaviors you're seeing or alternately things that the person you're describing can't easily change. So I'm not going to be able to easily change my nose between when you call and when the police arrive. So please, that's the sort of thing that's really helpful for the police. Well, I would not recommend taking a photo unless you can do so unobserved, because your personal safety is very paramount. So I would recommend not putting yourself in any kind of personal danger if you can, if you are able to avoid it. Please keep yourself safe while you're calling. That's key. Okay, so that goes for other kinds of observations you might make. So for example, license plate numbers. If you can easily record license plate numbers without being observed, that's helpful for the police. But if it involves like walking up to a car where something bad is happening and you see, and people who are in the car doing something bad are going to see you doing that, that's probably not a great idea. It's better that you remain safe and describe the kind of car to the police, the make and model, the color, that sort of thing, and as much detail as you can while remaining safe. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that clear? You guys have questions about that? Pretty clear? Okay, good. Okay, lastly, I want to talk about this handout, the problem-solving numbers in public spaces. So, problem-solving issues in public spaces, I'm sorry. So this handout talks a lot about the kinds of behavior you might see in a public space, such as a park, that are problematic for other members of the public. So for example, you're in the park and you see someone urinating or defecating in the park, not in a porta potty or a bathroom. That's a problem for the public space, and that's the kind of thing that either is a call to 911 or non-emergency, depending on what's going on, or alternately, in many cases, people who are experiencing mental health crises can be helped by calling for the police and also calling the mental health crisis number that's on here. So it is, always need to look this up, 988-4888. It's on here, it's also on the back of my card. That's the mental health crisis hotline from Multnomah County. And then last, they will go out to the neighborhood. So the last thing I want to talk about is animal control. If there's an animal that's being aggressive or dangerous or biting, that's a call to 911 immediately. So please do call 911 when you see that's dangerous to other people or to other animals. That's really kind of all the talking I have to do today. I'm happy to answer other questions, or we can talk. That might have been before my time as a crime prevention coordinator. I've been doing this about 2 years, but I will let the parks folks talk about their security approach. And Elizabeth?
I'm sorry?
We're having a question about Wackenhut as a security force for Colonel Summers Park. Is that, to my knowledge, that's not going on now.
That contract in gotten rid of?
Parks is not, actually, one of the things is it gotten rid of. I've never heard of us contracting with them.
They used to just lock the restrooms, that's what we hired them.
The one that drove through Colonel Summers Park did not know that it closed at 10 o'clock. It closed at 11 or midnight. So they never came at the time when they came. They did not distinguish it that was their only mission was to close the restrooms. And they did cooperate with getting some people out of the park at one time back in front of them. So that's not something that's ongoing.
No. I'm 99% certain we don't have a contract with Wackenhut right now. I leave that 1% for a margin of error in case I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. One of the changes that has been made in parks in the last couple of years is that we actually did give money to other people to do patrols, like Portland Business Alliance and stuff, to do security stuff downtown. And we actually have canceled some of those contracts and actually worked on strengthening our own ranger program, because we think that having our own rangers is better for building relationships in the community and having people who work for parks in the parks as opposed to people who work for other agencies in the parks. So we very intentionally brought that back in-house so that we can actually be more relationally oriented. Do you have more?
I don't. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to end the training portion of tonight's meeting and turn it back over to Elizabeth.
In regards to the non-emergency number, one of the things that I've personally experienced, and I'm sure many of the neighbors have experienced this, is there are oftentimes cars parked next to the sidewalk, next to the park. And usually there's drinking, music, and all kinds of stuff going on that I personally, as an adult male, can probably handle myself, still want to come around that. Because I know neighbors with kids feel. It's not, potentially it might not be doing anything illegal. What is your recommended recourse on that? Do you confront them personally? Do you call Parks and Rec, ask park rangers? Do you call the non-emergency number?
Right. So my advice to you is, if people are drinking in a car, I would call 911 because that's potentially drunken driving, and that's very dangerous for everyone. So if there's other kinds of problem behaviors that are going on, like for example loud music coming out of a car that's disturbing people, I would call non-emergency for that and let the police know what's going on. I'm trying to think of the other aspects that you described. So, Lieutenant Fort, do you want to talk about this a little bit? But I mean, basically, I would say the key kind of problem that I heard you describe is drinking in a car, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean,
That's potentially very dangerous.
pretty much any day you go by there, there's gonna be people hanging out in their car, and there could be different activities going on.
Okay.
It's sometimes hard to discern, and I'm just trying to say, what's the best avenue to approach? 'Cause a lot of times I won't even go around it.
Yeah, I would not approach that directly myself. I would call the police. We'll get you just to one second, and then one let Lieutenant Fort respond.
The only thing I would say is in some cases, it's not a hard and fast rule. Every time somebody's just sitting in a car drinking, 911, it's not every time that you don't. I think it's a judgment call where you decide, the philosophy is that if it's an immediate danger or going to be an immediate danger to the public or themselves, that's when it's 911. So if they're sitting in a car, there's 4 or 5 people sitting in a car drinking, and you kind of have to decide whether they're just hanging out there drinking and it's an immediate danger to everyone around versus where you think they're going to start the car and get ready to go. So it's a little bit of a judgment call. So it's not really a hard and fast rule, but the philosophy is if there's an immediate danger to the public or themselves immediately, then it's 911. If it's not, it's a non-emergency.
Okay, so this gentleman,
So I think there's a more systemic problem than just calling the police actually solves. First of all, I have called in people that not only have seen drinking, but seen fighting and then getting in the car driving and swerving. And again, I've been hung up on 911, sent to non-emergency, and I'm arguing whether or not I know whether someone's drunk. Every day, and I'm not exaggerating, someone is smoking pot in their car next to the park on the 17th Street side. I didn't even know about Chris's side. On my side, he's reported people doing drugs, and only after the 4th phone call got a police response. So it's a systemic problem around the border of the park. It's not even necessarily in the park, but people meet there and hang out and do drugs. Sometimes go in the park, sometimes just take off every single day, drunk or smoking pot. What we did before, and if you speak to Officer John Kukler or Mike Milanofi and tell them Andy Eisman said, give me a call, they'll tell you about the few hundred arrests I got them. So they were all promoted to detective sergeant. That has not changed. They're both detective sergeants, aren't they? You go talk to them and they'll say Andy Eisman is the reason why we're here. We need more response to just sort of cruisers coming by the neighborhood, which sets the tone. That's what changed the park. And then for years, I stopped doing anything in the park. Food Not Bombs came, incredible presence, but that's 2 days a week. They deal with things in a very nonviolent, direct approach. And people who aren't being nice to the rest of the people in the park realize they're not welcome and they leave. But besides those 2 days, there isn't that sort of large presence of people that have a cohesive feeling that hold the park together. And we need the police to come by and kind of just set a tone. It's not even stopping and arresting, but I know calling non-emergency or emergency won't address the systemic problems. Where a park is a public space, is used as a place to shoot up. I mean, there's a day that we cleared out 35 needles. I mean, come on, that's not a non-emergency.
We're going to take one more comment in this portion of the program and then take a break because Food Not Bombs very generously brought dinner and food dessert to everybody. We want to give Lindsay a little space to share with us. So we have one comment first.
When he first asked the question, he mentioned getting involved. He said, should I go get involved? Absolutely. You're obviously a well-spoken individual. You're obviously a man, a very statuesque man to any individual who needs guidance around the area. Go talk to them. Absolutely. And thank you for the food. You guys are awesome.
So I'm going to be fierce because there are many people, and I'm going to ask us to all hold ourselves accountable to sharing the space. And Lindsay.
I just want to invite everyone to come over here and eat some of this food because we made probably a little extra more than we normally make, just in case more folks are here than we expected. And whatever you guys don't eat, I have to take home, and I don't want to do that. So please come and eat some food with us. And we normally ask folks to bring their own containers because we don't like to generate garbage. And we have a few extra containers I think we brought for those who didn't bring containers, but I'm assuming a lot of you folks aren't familiar with food not bombs. So you may not know that, but there are some little plates over there with the little snacks, which you could use to sample entrees, kind of quickly. So that's all I had to say.
Would you please just give like a 2-minute, what is Food Not Bombs and why do you guys do what you do?
Food Not Bombs is, Food Not Bombs. We're advocating that we help people by making food for them instead of the militaristic culture of building bombs and dropping them on people. What we're trying to do with our chapter here specifically is show an alternative way of living that doesn't involve high energy, that doesn't involve having to go to war to pay for oil. Shows folks how they can take personal responsibility for their effects on the environment. I don't know if people are keeping up with the Keystone XL pipeline, but all I can say is the pipeline starts in the driveway. A lot of folks are going up there and locking themselves to the equipment. And we had a few folks who kept their cars locked and just didn't use them down here. Then there wouldn't be that demand to go pump all that bitumen out of the sands. So I mean, we're trying to demonstrate what a car-free community looks like, and so that's why we do everything by bike and trailer. We've been serving here in this park for I think about 7 years,
a lot longer than that.
a lot longer, you think? Because I know Food Not Bombs was downtown for a while, but I've only been here for 4 years. And that's as far back as I know the history. So we currently are serving on Mondays and Fridays. We also serve in front of City Hall. There's a group of houseless folks there who are advocating for their own rights to be able to survive, which kind of overlaps with this issue, obviously.
On Tuesday.
That's on Tuesdays. So we serve in Colonel Summers on Mondays and Fridays, from about 6 to 8, sometimes a little bit later depending on what our crowd is. And then at City Hall at 6:30. And we're also going to start a free farm stand out east of 82nd this Friday. And we're going to do all that by bike and trailer too, like way out like near 133rd. So that's going to be a fun party. If anybody has a bike and trailer and wants to help volunteer, please let me know. Also, if you would like to help cook, please let me or any of the people who are serving know. And that's it. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you, guys.
I would like to offer one thing that any of the neighbors, if they would like, we would love if you come and sit with us sometimes at our serving and kind of just get to know the environment from a different perspective. We see it on the ground there. A lot of us, work with houseless folks, and so we don't have the same, fear that folks who don't do that kind of work on a regular basis might have. And I know it's not just a prejudice. There's actually legitimate noise issues and things going on after park closing. But I think that if that's what we want to do is create a real community where people, no matter what, you don't have to be poor, you can be rich, it doesn't matter, you can come and sit down and eat with us. And that's the community we want to build, is where we get rid of that class divide and people can just share and get to know each other. And there's free food.
Everybody go get snacks, we'll bring everybody back together.
Some broccoli. Some broccoli. I'd like a little bit of, you want me to cheese? Yeah. Is everything all right? You almost look kind of homespun in a way. Eddie Crocker's cousin. Do you vote up on the blues in there? Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Oh, wow. All right.
This is actually, I'm using it for systemic concerns. there are issues that we may not be able to solve in this conversation. The homeless issue in the city of Portland is far bigger than us in this room. Homelessness is not a crime, it is a life circumstance, and there's a bigger conversation about how we deal with people and their holding or their housing options. So I'm gonna ask us to try not to focus on that too much tonight. How and when we use the police is not something we're gonna solve here. So I'm gonna try to track some of that stuff here.
You think that drugs and alcohol poses a concern that could not be solved in the park? By a park?
It's challenging because it is illegal to drink in a park, and that is kind of our base.
But is it, do you consider it a systemic concern that's larger than the park?
That's not, you want me to put it up there? I'm happy to do that. Should we put it up there?
I think it means like drug and alcohol use or use.
Okay.
Is bigger.
Okay. And so, very quickly, okay,
One
did that
very
you last time?
important issue, it's not a question that somebody should address, it knows exactly. Who owns the park? Who is the legal owner of the park? And who decides about regulating the park for use of the park?
And so that also leads me to, and then we'll go ahead and do introductions, a couple, I'll get you in just a second.
I'm just asking folks to just speak clearly and a little loudly if you're in the front, because a lot of ears are behind you. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
So everyone speak up. Yes.
I have a question. If these things over on this side are not important,
No, that is not the case.
no, but you're saying these are things that aren't going to be solved tonight. You have to start tonight to start solving these problems, or they continue and nobody ever gets anywhere with them.
Fair enough. And we are talking about them. So
Yes.
you are correct. So some of the things we're talking about, parks can actually move forward on fairly quickly. Things like limbing up branches so that we're not creating places for people to hide in the park and creating unsafe circumstances. Some things, there was a notion of gating the pavilion. May or may not be something we could even do in the near term because of funding issues. So really this is all about, and the list that people may have seen was not a list of things that we are proposing to do. But what we did is we had, people missed this earlier, we had a couple conversations with neighbors who said we are concerned about a sense of feeling unsafe in the park. We're concerned about what's happening after 10 o'clock in the park. We are concerned about underage drinking happening excessively in the park. That was a list of actions that might potentially have a bearing on those concerns. So basically it goes like, if you gate the pavilion, nobody can hang out in the pavilion and hide in there and defecate in there. That does not mean we were proposing to do that. It just means that that was put up there as something that may possibly happen. So I just want to be really clear that we are not, this conversation is the first one that we are having about that list of possibilities. And if people feel really strongly about one thing or another, that's actually what we're here to hear. So there is nothing that we are saying we want to do, except get rid of the, burned out benches and the graffiti and some of the maintenance stuff. Okay, is that fair? Now we will do introductions. If you were not here the first time we did introductions, very quickly tell us who you are. What was the question I came up with? What does safety feel like to you? In 1 or 2 words. Go.
I'm Jeff Taylor. Safety is being able to have a reasonable amount of personal space, respect wherever I'm at.
Okay. Sir?
I already introduced myself earlier. Kirby.
Brett?
I'm Brett Horner. I'm with Portland Parks. I'm the planning and design manager.
I'm Ashley Mills. I live across the park with my 2 small kids, my husband. I would say safety feels me like I can be relaxed with my kids and feel like, have a good time and not be worried about what they're going to be exposed to.
My name is Karen Gass, and I'm the neighbor.
can walk around the park. It's clean, there's no vandalism, there's no intimidating figures out there.
Oh, I'm Elizabeth, neighbor. I don't really have anything to add to that definition, that's good.
Okay.
I'm Benjamin Anderson. I'm actually not a community member. I'm here representing Operation Pitch and Bake, a local nonprofit.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. I'll stand up and try to speak loud. My name is Jeff Milkus. I am the Southeast and East Services Zone Manager for the Parks Bureau. So my responsibilities include assets, parks, and the like in Southeast Portland on this side of the river. And Colonel Summers Park is one of the parks I'm responsible for.
You want to introduce yourself and one or two words about what safety looks like for you?
I'm Susan Lindsay, I'm co-chair of the Buckman Community Association. What's the question?
What does safety look like?
What safety feels like to me is relaxation.
Would you introduce yourself again?
I'm Tim Crail. I work for Commissioner Amanda Fritz, and I'm here to listen to the community on their behalf.
If people are skipping themselves.
My name's Kurt Bedell. I'm one of the neighbors, and safety feels like, to me, not being robbed again.
Not being what?
Robbed again.
Go ahead.
My name is Ashley. I'm a neighbor of the park, and safety for me means being able to be in the park with my kids and not observing illegal behavior.
Just go ahead and pop up if you haven't introduced yourself.
My name is Bruce, and I live up the hill, and safety for me is just everything being calm.
My name is Cameron, and safety to me means access to basic needs and community. Thank you.
My name is Joey, and safety to me looks like, well, community, yeah, like welcome and acceptance, knowing that I can go into a space and not face hostility or that stuff.
My name is Sylvia, and I live on the 17th Street side of the park. And to me, safety looks like mutual respect and justice.
I'm Ron Brown, and safety to me means that I could enter the park and have my personal space and not be threatened in any way.
My name is John McVeigh. I live at 1752 across the street from the park, and safety to me means not having to intervene when a female's being beaten up at 10:30 at night by the drunks.
I'm Naomi. I just moved in 3 weeks ago, right across from the basketball courts. And so I say safety to me, same thing is feeling like I can look out my window without seeing something that I'm worried which number I'm supposed to call, and feeling like I can walk out of my house without worrying that I'm going to get in the middle of something.
My name is Joel. I'm a human neighbor, and safety for me is maintaining, sustaining civil nature throughout the park and community.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Maintaining a civil nature throughout the park and community.
Okay. You can't be done. Are we done? Yeah.
My name is Satya Vayu. I'm a community member and a frequent user of the park. And safety to me means growing and maturing in yourself so that you can reach out with love to more and more people. Action.
My name's Bruce. I'm a neighbor. For me, safety is the idea that people aren't allowing their prejudices to drive their internal thought processes as much as I mean, it's one thing to look at a crime happening, but it's another thing to feel that people who don't look like you are threatening, and I don't like that.
I'll follow that. My name is Alex. I'm a frequent user and proud member, I would say, of Food Not Bombs. And safety to me means building community by smiling at each other and feeling accepted, no matter what color or creed I am.
I'm Elizabeth, and I feel safe when I have communication.
Oh, my name is Carol, and I feel safe. I feel safe amongst anyone on this planet. All of them, and the what we call houseless or homeless happen to be some of my dearest friends and brothers. And I think what we need to do here is create more community and start uniting together and sharing more from the heart.
Oh, my name's Rick Scott. I've been a homeowner in Buckman since the mid-90s. And I guess I'm missing all the excitement because I've never felt unsafe in that park. I mean, it's not a perfect world. There's litter and this and that, but maybe a little bit of attitude, but I've never felt there was any real problem with safety.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm Eddie. I've been living in Portland for about 20 years, and I'd say safety comes out of engagement, particularly with people who, you know, are different than yourself.
Any more?
My name is Kaya, and to me, safety means everyone having access to their basic needs.
My name is Lior. I'm also a volunteer with Food Not Bombs, and completely agree with the last comment. Access to basic needs, both for myself but also for everybody around me.
My name's Tyler. I would also like to comment, echo what Lior was saying about basic needs and have more compassion.
My name is Jimmy. I want to echo again what the three people have been saying so far, and add that I think safety is a commitment to nonviolence.
My name is Carrie, and I struggle here, or I'm struggling, but I have struggled with homeless now for 4 years. So is my son, who's in his 20s. We feel safe to live in Southeast. We felt very safe to be at Food Not Bombs at the park. I need to breathe. I just came from Oregon City, and I did not feel safe on the streets there, but I do feel safe here, and everyone here seems to be copacetic to each other and to be embracing each other and sharing with each other and helping us get through this. Thank you.
My name is Jesse. I'm new to Portland, and safety to me is being comfortable in your surroundings, not being afraid of face competition.
My name's Jason. I live over here by the park. Kind of like the phrase right above commitment, right at seeing it as a human.
I have something I'd like to add, ma'am. About safety. Hi, I'm Tom Berry. Like today, this is just a thing that happened today. There's people, we didn't like these people, but they were shooting up drugs in the park, in the bathrooms. And one guy started overdosing, like, he was falling out. I saved him, and I made the lady clean up all the blood in the bathroom. Like, they were all involved with each other. But I took care of I saved the guy from dying. I made them clean up their mess. And they were by the time that the paramedics and the police showed up, they were already on their way. And nobody knows the difference. to me, that's safety, like taking care of your own community. You know, you guys may all look down on me, but I'm still here trying to save us all. You know, please have a heart. Don't look down on people just because we are different. We do good things. And I don't mean to say, I know it's wrong to even talk about any kind of valor because it makes it less, but in this circumstance, I felt like I should say that.
So I'm gonna switch this over, hopefully not too abruptly. So there are a couple different very specific things to talk about. We had a list of potential mechanical things, I call them mechanical things, I think it's the wrong word, parks amenities, that we have choices to make about, or just feedback from you guys on what to do with these things. And then talking to Michael, there's this huge conversation about how do we as a community get together and talk about how we want this park to work. And I don't feel like we have the space or the time to have that conversation today, but I feel like there's maybe enough people interested in having that conversation that we should have it at another point, maybe even at a serving in the park like on a Monday, and just hang out and talk about it. I don't want to ignore it, but I just want to kind of acknowledge that that's a much bigger conversation about how we interact with each other in the park. And really inviting neighbors to come out and just, share food about moms and sit down and really see what's going on and talk about what do we do with our community here. So if everybody's okay with that, I kind of want to put it as a placeholder for another conversation. And we get to, and this all stuff all feels very mundane right now after hearing you guys talk. So I'm like, and I'm gonna, the list of things includes the picnic tables, and we'll talk to you a little bit about why they're on the list. Picnic tables, pavilion, a futsal court, stairs, and access from 18th. And Benjamin came from Operation Pitch Invasion, and I'm not sure what he's thinking about this meeting right now.
So I am perfectly flexible. I don't want to distract from the conversations that need to happen in this meeting today, so I'm perfectly okay tabling my proposal until a later time.
I actually was just going to start with that.
Oh, okay, that works too.
Well, because we've kind of floated it in the community, and people are fairly it seems non-controversial, and we want to just have people's response to it. And if people feel cool with it, it's an opportunity to pilot something in the park. And I'm going to have you explain what Operation Pitch Invasion is and what futsal is.
Hi everybody, my name is Benjamin Anderson. I'm on the board of directors for Operation Pitch Invasion. We're a 501c3 dedicated to constructing, maintaining, and restoring football pitches in the Portland metro area. We have been talking a little bit, as some of you know, about the installation of a futsal court here in the park. If you're not familiar with futsal, it's a South American style of soccer that's basically designed to give access to folks who live in more, what's the word I'm looking for here, concentrated kind of areas. So it's basically soccer on a small court with a heavy ball. There's not a lot of places in Portland that offer a good facility for futsal right now, and it's an ever-growing sport in this town, and so we thought this would be a great place to pilot a community futsal court. I'm not exactly sure, I haven't been completely briefed on where it would be located in the park. My guess is near the other sports facilities.
There's a cement asphalt pad behind the tennis courts that has something called pickleball
Yes.
on it. Nobody knows what pickleball is. At least I don't, but.
Fun game, paddles. Also good. I prefer futsal.
These guys said that this could be a great place to put in a futsal court. So it would, can you talk a little bit about what it would look like?
Absolutely. So essentially, the work that we would do is any restoration to the actual space that needs to happen, crack filling, that kind of thing. We'd install a couple goals that are quite a little bit smaller than regular soccer goals, and we would paint lines. We have a group of a lot of volunteers who would show up on probably a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, do this all in one go, and it would be completely free for you to use at any point.
So it's a turf game.
Typically it's on a kind of a hard court. My understanding is we would probably leave the concrete as is. Although this isn't, this particular project isn't my baby, so I apologize for any lack of detail that I give.
So does anybody have any questions just to clarify what it is? Okay. And Andy, you have a comment?
Historically, that area has been used for a lot of different things, for people, the tennis backboard, so people just learn to play tennis track. Would it still have that multi-use?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're talking about including that space and then using it for that?
It would still have multi-use potential, yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to ask a very pointed question. Would anyone have concerns or want to talk further about this, or would people generally be comfortable with trying this out here? Raise your hand. Okay.
Portable, do they come and go with the activity, or are these?
My assumption is that these are going to be fixed because they are relatively small, and relatively small things have a way of finding their way to other areas of the park and that kind of thing. It's something that we could potentially entertain.
Like when you say small, size of the chair?
So I don't actually play futsal. I play soccer. I don't play futsal. My understanding is they're probably about 5 feet. Does anyone play futsal? Yeah.
I used to play football.
About 5 feet? Thank you.
But can I say there are other futsal courts which goals are considerably smaller. So the goals can be adjusted depending on the space. So it's not like a big soccer field in the extent that the Via de Clara Vista and North Portland Boulder Park are small.
And is this something that you prefer schools like coming in to play?
Hopefully. We would definitely like to see more facilities out there for the various leagues and club teams in town. My understanding is yes. What I'll say is that while I can't answer that right now, I'll bring it to the rest of the board and see what they think about it, the feasibility of actually doing it.
And the goals being there, it will still be able to be used for anything.
They're not going to encroach into the space all that much. These are relatively small pieces of equipment.
So, okay, I'm going to take 3 more comments.
Mine are
It was
questions.
You, and you, and you. Go ahead.
First question, what is the composite of the goal? And the reason I'm asking is graffiti and vandalism. And if it's mounted, that's my question. What's the composite? My second question is, in the futsal courts that are already present in town, what has been the overall impression it's made on the space? Have there been any problems regarding vandalism, and graffiti, and what are the other neighborhoods? How do they feel about it?
Sure. So I'm going to try and approach the second question first because I'm a little bit more confident on the answer. So in my understanding, there are a handful of futsal courts throughout Portland, and they're very heavily used. I haven't heard any reports of extensive vandalism, graffiti, any kind of problems with these community spaces. Most of them are in relatively isolated member type of situations. This, to my knowledge, will be one of the few public use futsal courts in Portland. So obviously we haven't really seen that, and I can't really say what is going to happen. In terms of what the goals will be made of, I guess it's also going to come down to what can we feasibly do. My guess is it would be an installed kind of steel kind of setup, but they might be portable goals. Hopefully they are. Probably an aluminum thing like you would see with with a regular soccer goal.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, I don't know if anyone else is wondering this, but is this like a priority for this evening? It seems like there are a lot of other things that are important for people to discuss. And like, I just wonder if this is actually addressing a lot of the concerns that were on a table.
So, that's why I was hoping to dispense with this quickly as something that people might just support. So we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about it unless you have concerns about it that would cause us not to be like, wait, you had a comment and then Susan.
I was just wondering what the specific details of the changes that you're going to bring in.
My understanding is crack filling, painting lines, putting in the goals, and that's pretty much it. And just general restoration of the space in general, any kind of maintenance issues.
Susan?
So,
Who is budgeting?
My understanding is it's mostly going to come out of our budget. So we provide all the volunteering. We will provide all of the equipment. There might be some parks funds involved. I'm not sure exactly, but it won't be community.
So my question, I think it sounds like a great, interesting idea. I don't know anything about the game. If I'm like picnicking or hanging out on a grassy area that's just to the east of where the backstop area is there some sort of, if you're in there and you wallop this thing and it gets loose and I get slammed while I'm sitting on the grass, is there some kind of thing to prevent stray shots from getting out of that area?
So my understanding is there is a fence around this space currently, correct?
I don't remember that.
Not on that side. So we would install some kind of barrier. This is not the kind of ball that's going to it's not going to go very far. It's relatively heavy. So we will have to approach that and install something.
So I'm going to ask, would anyone have any concerns with us moving forward to explore this?
Great.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Quick question?
Do you have to say what you have to say? Because this woman had a really good point.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to take much more time, but I would just say, in exploring it, I think there are significant reservations. One, what I have is just not so much the structures, because it doesn't seem like that would interfere too much with other things, but how much it would be used by other teams, especially if they're not necessarily from the neighborhood, because that space is used for other things quite a bit, and people enjoy it. So I think it's an issue, and it needs to be gone slowly and carefully for sure, but not at this meeting.
Thank you for your attention, everyone, and your participation. I'll come back to you after we have this conversation a little bit more. We'll start working out some of the nuts and bolts. We'll come to you one final time, and then hopefully, if it doesn't work out, we'll get started. Thanks.
Thank you, Benjamin. And I'm going to ask Art Hendricks, he is our park ranger manager, to talk a little bit about what brought us all here and how the list that we're going to talk about relates to why we're talking here.
Everybody, and I apologize, I've got some notes that I want to speak from because I've been dealing with lots of stuff over the past weekend here, and I want to try to make sure that I stay on point. But before a couple of things I want to say just to preface talking about some of the issues that we've invited in here. And I first want to say that when people think of security manager, they tend to sort of connotate a certain type of person. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and the values in which I come from and try to bring to the position in terms of parks. First and foremost, I used to be a resident of this neighborhood. My daughter grew up in this neighborhood. My daughter went to Buckman Elementary School. I lived on 20th and Taylor for 7 years. I have lots of fond memories of taking my daughter on the swings, of playing basketball, of taking her to when we used to have the wading pool there. And so Colonel Summers has a particular special place. I'm originally from San Francisco, born in Haight-Ashbury, born to flower parents, and so Colonel Summers is like home to me in terms of where I come from in terms of San Francisco. So I think that what was important to me was that as I took on this position a couple of years ago, I came to Elizabeth about 6 months ago and I said, I think the challenges that we see in Colonel Summers are going to really require us as parks and me as a security manager really to try to engage the community. And when Elizabeth talked about what safety looks like and people talked about it, for me what it looks like is connection. It looks like connection between groups of people and those groups of people coming together and collectively coming together to solve the issues. Because as a park ranger, manager, or security manager, what I will tell you is this. One,
to the extent that we don't have park rangers in the park, that's a good thing, because what it says is that the community in and of itself has a sense of order or control, or all those words that we use to talk about safety. So that's my goal. My goal was we need to engage the community, the residents, the broader community, and I started out on some conversations with folks, Susan being one from the Neighborhood Association and other folks, to say, here's the issues that we have at hand that we're really trying to solve. I was asked 2 years ago, some before last, by the Portland Police Bureau if our park rangers could be present in the park for a couple of reasons. One, the police had been receiving a number of calls over a period of time about concerns that were happening in the park throughout the day. Yeah, nighttime becomes a pretty scary time, but the concerns were pretty consistent over time, and they touched on a couple of issues. One had to be the overall vandalism and just the care of the park. Second had to do sort of, you know, the people who were hanging out in the park and seemed to be taking over were a mix of young people, maybe some transitory people, but engaged in a lot of drug use. Regardless of who they were, there was lots of drug activity, lots of fights that were occurring as a result of that, and intimidation that was happening. The police also talked to me about this Monday Fun Day. Now, my frame of lens, when I lived here from 90 to 96, is like, well, what is Monday Fun Day? Okay, we didn't have Monday Fun Day when my daughter grew up in the park. And so they said, you know, if you could have rangers on Monday night, that would be great. And what I saw was a lot of activity, just a lot of organic activity happening in the park. Lots of 20 and 30-year-olds. In fact, what I said is it's kind of, in some ways, it seemed like Colonel Summers has sort of turned into the pickup place for a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds to just come and hang out and socialize. So a lot of 20, 30-year-olds, a lot of people engaged in a lot of positive activity. The things that concerned me that I saw were a lot of underage drinking, a lot of young people who were coming, and as I initially there and talking to a lot of young people, is that, yeah, Colonel Summers has sort of got this reputation that if I'm under the age of 21, I can go and I can mingle with folks who are older, and it's a place where I can, you know, sort of be anonymous, if you will, and, you know, get people to buy alcohol for me or engage in drug use. And so when we initially were in the park, what we also saw was, yeah, there was a group of folks who were engaged in a lot of illicit activity around the stairs, and there seemed to be, you know, sort of a little ant trail that would go to and from the park, where not only just folks kind of trying to enter the park, but it became sort of a safe haven, and talking to some of the immediate neighbors about the impact that it was having on them. So in talking with the police, part of the issue that the police, you know, really shared was they were receiving a lot of calls, and because of the lack of resources, weren't able to provide enough patrols. And could we provide a presence in the park that could begin to start to provide a sense of safety and security? Now, what I will tell you is that as a program, our park ranger program has historically been a seasonal program. We hire folks from the community. We try to provide them with extensive training, but they come from a wide variety of backgrounds. You know, I have folks who, you know, ex-publisher who, you know, for a publishing company. Folks who have a variety of backgrounds, and our focus really is to train them on really doing three things. One is to make a connection. It's a connection with you, to give you a face and a way to the Parks Bureau around the positive things that you're seeing in your park, the things that we need to tend to, and how we can work with, you know, our counterparts in maintenance to try to resolve those issues. Two, to be problem solvers. You know, one of the things I'm very proud of the Park Ranger program is work of our rangers, Katie Gribbin, who goes every Thursday night to the homeless feed down underneath the Burnside Bridge and collected tons of clothes and shoes and really connected with a lot of homeless folks to try to get them resources out on the street when it's cold, in the wintertime. And her efforts were recognized by Director Abadi as being things that, as parks, but not only city employees, that we have to understand that those are human beings that are in our parks. And yeah, we have rules, but more importantly, we have an obligation to try to meet those. And then the third thing is that, yes, we do enforce park rules. That is what we're charged with. Under city code, under Title 20, park rangers do have a responsibility to ensure that we're educating people about the rules of park and that we're making sure that people are compliant. Since the time that we've been there, I think we've seen a decrease, and we have back here Lieutenant Fort from the Police Bureau who can talk to you, afterwards about the reduction in calls for service that they've seen to the police in terms of the number of concerns. Is there a lot of room for improvement? Absolutely. What I'm most excited about is all the people in this room. And I see residents, and I see neighbors, and I see Food Not Bombs, and I see folks that have a lot of energy and passion. And to the extent that we can work together, okay, to, look at how we can improve as a program, but most importantly, really to understand that, we not only had to write an exclusion to a 13-year-old girl who was buying alcohol from a transient person, okay, that we had to call her mom and say, you need to come get her. This is not the place for a 13-year-old girl to be. That's what I'm overall concerned about. And the things that we're talking about tonight really have to do with how the physical space can help bring and attract people and give a sense of the park is not being a safe haven for needles and all the things that get hidden in the bushes and all the feces and urine that's within that park. And Betsy Redfern's here, and the other group that I want to say that I want you to consider that's not here tonight are the park workers that go in that park every day. Every day, making sure that they're trying to clean up that trash, making sure that they're trying to get hypodermic needles out of the park so that you can, or we can, bring our children to that park. And so I wanted to share that perspective with you because tonight I want to listen. I want to listen to the ideas and the thoughts you have about the physical improvements. I want to sit and listen about how we can improve as a ranger program and what we can do as parks to, really sort of advocate that part of it. So I'll turn it back over to you.
So I want to point out again, we're responsible for kind of the design of the physical space and looking at how we use design to impact how people use it and move through the park and what it feels like to them. And Betsy Redfern, many of you know her, has been a horticulturalist.
I was a horticulturist for 15 years. I've been with the city 25.
And she is really responsible for making sure the park, even with a huge amount of use, really is still a very beautiful space. And that's a lot for a crew. And Jeff Milkus, who is her supervisor, and Tim, the commissioner. And I just want to point out the resources. We asked them not to talk. We asked them to kind of listen and hear what you guys are saying about some of the items on the list, and then come back and figure out, okay, now what do we do with this information? So the list of things, and I kind of want to go, I'm going to try something. One of the things we've heard the most about is the pavilion. We've heard lots of concerns about gating the pavilion. I'm going to start at the other end of the spectrum and say, does anybody really want to talk about why they think gating the pavilion might be a good idea?
I don't feel comfortable waiting to
Purpose now.
So,
Has anybody ever seen me picnicking in there?
So I want to give, do you guys want to talk about what are pavilions for? Brett?
Well, I don't know exactly when it was built, but I'm sure it was built for neighborhood gatherings, picnic, birthday parties, picnics, just shelter from the rain and the sun during the summer. So over the years, I don't know, Betsy, how you've experienced the use.
The one at Pell, we have picnic tables and it's rented out. People would open it and would rent it and then they would have it for their picnic. The one at Colonel Summers, the problem that we had was
leaving the picnic tables in there, they were damaged. We kind of kept, we just finally got the hint that they were just damaged so badly that we just kept taking one out and taking one out and taking one out. And we finally just gave up and took them all out.
So now we're a long ways from that scenario, right?
I'm sorry?
So now we're a long ways from that scenario. Am I right?
As a picnic area.
As a picnic area.
Right, it's the table, yeah.
Andrew made a point.
You can speak up.
I had a long conversation myself and Michael Jennings with Andrew. And during that conversation, he actually mentioned that shelter serves as a rally point during any kind of emergency or natural disaster.
Yeah, one thing that's not spoken of is the park is a designated emergency collection zone in case of an earthquake or other natural disaster. So it's important that a shelter be accessible 24/7. So both emergency crews could do operations out of that facility. It also historically, since I lived in the neighborhood across the street from this pavilion, has been used for the food programs for underprivileged kids whose families would often leave the kids in the park, and the park's program had a food program, and the kids would be eating there, rain or shine, in shelter, separate from there being benches there. Weddings are held there fairly regularly. But it is an emergency designated park.
Just to add to that too, I've seen it used in numerous just community activities between islands, and like a Buddhist convention, Buckman picnic, all sorts of things like that.
It is reserved, it is currently a rental as part of the park. But Ed, go back here.
Yeah, just in general, it's used, I mean, besides these special events, of course, which could be facilitated by a rental kind of thing. For people who don't spend as much time outside, whether you're housed or not housed, it's maybe seems like a mystery, but for people as myself who's homeless and a lot of people that just like to spend a lot of outside time, in the rainy season, that's where you go when you want to commune. So there's people communing there all the time. It's just, if you're interested in making community in ways that are a little unusual in our time and place in our culture right now, because people are pretty separate in houses, that's the kind of structure you need to use. And in my experience, I've been doing Food Not Bombs for 10 years now in Portland, and I was one of the key people that moved it to Colonel Summers Park from its previous places. And so I've been seeing the use of that pavilion for a long time, and a lot of the use is really wonderful and is spontaneous, and it's not by people that could either afford to or a special event that they plan for, but just getting together and socializing. And yes, I've seen some drinking there, probably including some underage drinking. I don't check people's ages. But, and I think that that's an issue that needs to be worked on, but when I hear it spoken of as like such a, you know, young people drink. I'm sure a lot of you people drank before you were 21. I actually didn't, unusually, but when people are saying like this is like some crazy thing, I mean, I don't drink and I'm really sensitive to the problems of alcoholism. I have a lot of friends who are alcoholic. But anywhere you go, whether it's closed there or not, you know, people in their teens are going to drink, as I think all of you know, and you know, share a cigarette and this and that. I'm sure there's more serious drug things too, but those are pretty rare because I've never seen them myself. And it's a really vital place, I think, for a lot of people.
Oh, I was just reiterating that it's illegal to drink in the park, so I agree with you. Actually, it's just that it's illegal to drink in the park.
Without a permit.
Without a permit, excuse me. Thank you for that.
This gentleman and this woman.
I would just like to stress that I think solutions that are based on eliminating amenities that have been there for a long time are not solutions. They are a way to degrade the quality of the park.
Yes. Here, here.
What would be some of your recommendations for decreasing, you know, hard drug use and 12-year-old girls drinking and dealing drugs?
They're not going to stop doing that because you closed the pavilion.
No, I mean, I'm not saying, let's be constructive. What are some of your ideas?
That would being in the systemic category. It's not going to be solved tonight. It's not going to be solved by more enforcement in the park even. But there are constructive things that should be happening around that.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's more about how people are treated when they are found in those situations versus trying to prevent them from happening by closing off an accessible place to people. And I do feel that the pavilion should be accessible to everyone. I think that the type of people that could afford to rent out that pavilion could probably just as easily have a party in their own backyard or anywhere else, or rent out another space. You know, it's a place in a park, and I think that everyone should have access to it. But then in terms of the bigger question of how do we deal with underage drinking and hard drug use in the park and in that shelter, it is illegal in the park, but I think that's just a bigger question of how do we address it when it goes on, because like somebody said, that stuff is going on everywhere, not just in Colonel Summers Park. You know, it's going on all over the place. It's probably going on, you know, in these kids' houses when their parents go away or when their parents aren't home. You know, I know that when I was a young teenager, we would drink in our own houses. So like, it's not about the park. I think it's about how we're dealing with these problems on a much larger level. So I don't think that closing up the pavilion is the answer for that.
I'd like to say I admire the mission of Food Not Bombs. I think
Can you speak loudly?
I'd like to say I admire the mission of Food Not Bombs, and I admire the work that they do, and I recognize that homelessness and mental health is an issue in our community. But Food Not Bombs is there a couple of days a week. I live across the street, and on Wednesday nights, when that pavilion is filled with 5 drunken homeless men screaming, cursing, and fighting, I'm sorry. I have a job, and I want to be open. I want the park to be accessible to people, but it goes both ways. I don't want to have to call the police every night. It's unfair to the people that live and work in the community. We share the park during the day, and we ask that we get some respect in the evening, and I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Doesn't the park close at 10? Like, isn't everyone shut out at 10? Or kicked out?
In theory.
I have seen people throw kerosene or some fire starter on the ground in there and light it up. I've seen the building on fire, or I've seen fire in the pavilion. I see people fighting in there. I walk over there. It's dirty. It stinks. It smells like urine. It's not fair.
You mostly see this in the evening?
No, it's all.
I'm going to, I think we should just acknowledge that the space creates a place where problems exist. So right now we're looking at, is this, you know, and really talking about it, because I don't think that regardless of what the outcome of this conversation is, we're not gonna go gate it tomorrow. There's a whole lot more that would need to happen. I'm not even sure we have the resources to do that. So I think that people can think longer term about, you know, it isn't a matter of saying we're gonna do this now or not. It's a matter of, you know, if there are other ideas about how we deal with some concerns and issues going on in that space, we have plenty of time to try to enact them. We don't have to make a decision about yes or no right now. Putting a gate around a pavilion, trust me, I work for the government, it may take a while. So we have time to try other stuff in the interim. Lindsay would like to talk. You had your hand up. Am I missing anyone?
Okay, I'm asserting myself because I was way in the back behind the pods.
I'm sorry.
And I raised for a while, but you didn't see me. It's okay. Answer the question that came from this direction. I don't know where the lady went, but I used to drink, okay, and I stopped drinking because of Food Not Bombs. I grew up, I guess I was a professional most of my adult life, and my community was, going out to the bar or the restaurant. And I didn't realize that, there was an alternative to that until I found Food Not Bombs. And I could go somewhere besides a bar to hang out and find friends. So I think that Food Not Bombs is a solution to the broader issue of underage drinking, any kind of drug use. Second, I want to just highlight this prejudice because it's not okay for us to talk about the broader social issue of houselessness in this meeting, okay, as a means of defending certain amenities in the park we want to save. But it is okay to talk about the broader social issue of drinking. So that's just another use of that prejudice, okay?
And then lastly, if the problems are after 10 o'clock, after park closing, why do we have half a dozen rangers in the park the entire time, but then nobody there at closing to make sure folks leave? And that's, to me, a really simple, like, logistical issue.
We don't have them there the entire time.
Yeah, they have them there in the evenings. At 10 o'clock when the park is supposed to close, we've noticed, especially on Mondays, that does help clear out and, enforce the evening. In the last month, it's been much
So why
quieter.
not have just a ranger come through every night?
We do.
Make sure, every night at 10, you make sure people leave?
So just to a moment, just to clarify, prior to July, we would contract with a private security company to lock the bathrooms, and we started having rangers take over that responsibility. And so the rangers have been in the park late at night to, make sure that not only the restrooms locked up, but that that the park's safe, and we can report that to the police if need be. The other thing I want to say is that this is not, we don't have to dichotomize this issue, do we gate or not gate. I think there's a lot of room in between that doesn't necessarily mean you have to permit to use the pavilion. For instance, we can open the gate in the morning and lock the gate at night. So I don't want to have people think that it's an either-or situation. What I would like is really, let's explore the options. Let's explore the possibilities. Give us information that helps us to meet the needs of Food Not Bombs as well as the residents.
Yeah. So one of the organizations I helped found 6 years ago, we rented the pavilion last year for one of our annual events. And this year we didn't because of the cost increase, so we just set up outside in the picnic tables. But I have noticed, and it's been a good space both for me and community events I've been part of, including Pedapalooza and stuff like that, bike rides, that it is kind of dark, even in the daylight, and I wonder if even brightening it or motion censored lights would help decrease some of that. Just brighter area, more visibility might deter some of that behavior because they're more spotlighted.
Yeah, I'm not saying. All right, once you get
You.
With the advent of LEDs, so that it doesn't cost, could the pavilion literally be lit up brilliantly at the time the park closes, 10 o'clock, and just have it just really bright. Two things, whoever wants to use it for less than stellar purposes is not going to feel
I guess part of my concern goes back to what this gentleman said earlier. If we put up a gate, unless we address the systemic issues, they kind of go back to some of those safety things, when, whether it be respect or compassion for the way people are treated in the park. The issues are just going to move elsewhere. They'll move under the bushes, they'll move over to the tennis courts, they'll move somewhere else. It's not going to address the problems. We need to address the systemic issues. The other thing is, having lived across the street from that park for 23 years, it's a slippery slope. The bathrooms were locked because they were a problem. And then they were never opened, not during the day, not at night. So people urinate and defecate in other places. I can just see the gate going up, oh, we'll open it during the day, and then it never being opened, since that is a large part of the history of the park. Resources are scarce, and resources to clean the bathrooms suddenly didn't happen when the park program closed down. Resources to open the gate could easily not show up a couple years down the road. I think it's a really, really slippery slope. If we don't promote positive use in the park, we're going to end up with a trash heap where nobody wants to go.
So I want to check in with folks. We could talk about this a lot more, but it's not something necessarily, I just wanted to kind of hear what people thought about it and exactly what you said, what your questions and concerns and impacts, what you perceive the impacts to be. So if you're okay with it, I'd like to maybe move on to, we have about 25 minutes left, to another topic. Is that okay with everybody? And we'll take 2 more comments, unless you're just saying that's brilliant, do it. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I just wonder if anybody ever got an idea of how much it would cost to put bars up on that shelter house.
How much it would cost to gate it?
Yeah, I know at the Buckman meetings, there's always this problem, like they're thinking we're gonna have to close the pool, and that's not good, that's been there for years. The money might be better spent for the pool in Buckman.
I don't think we can answer the question, right? We haven't, I mean, this is really the first time we've had a conversation. We haven't looked
So
at design or
you don't know
materials or, probably more than money than we have right now.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
I don't want to be held to a number. It's probably around $8,000 to $10,000, the whole thing.
Like something.
I'm thinking double that, right off from the gate.
It's custom work.
Like the tram.
Like, it'd be $1 billion.
We did have it costed out several years back with a wrought iron system, just to see what it would be. And I think, Betsy, we were somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15,000.
Yeah.
Depends on the quality of the bars you use.
And it was a cost of steel. What was the cost at that time? When it fluctuates, you can say, oh, well, now we're up to 15, now we're down to 8, up to 15, depending on where we are. But we do have a design on it, and it's really pretty.
I'm forcing myself. Okay, so she hasn't said anything, and I was like, we're gonna move on, but since she hasn't said anything, I want to give her a chance to speak. And then I'm going to move us to another topic, and we can come back to this at some point, unless there's something so profoundly important that you haven't shared that must be said out loud. And if it's not, you will be punished. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the list of, community solutions, and I was having this vision of like, what if part of the solution was to have these community members all go in a group, all you neighbors can just walk up in a group and actually, with your babies, whoever you want to bring, and actually come up to these people. Because we got to remember, people have been like emotionally and physically abused, they've had like a lot of serious issues that they've like taken on, right? So, to come up to these people, these, you neighborhood people, to like come up to them and be like, hey, I live here, try to like have conversations with these people. This could be part of the solution.
Good idea.
You're allowed to meet strange people. Okay, now I'm going to, I'm so ignoring you right now.
Get the baby.
I just wanted to summarize that it's a long-term plan to fence in the gazebo. It's a plan, they've been talking about it for years.
Super quick solution, city repair, intersection painting, beautification is something that hasn't been considered. You beautify a space, you make it worth caring about, people will treat it better. So, we'll do it for free. I will be there.
And there's a beautiful mandala already in there that just needs to be touched up. There's a lady that comes and does it. But if we helped her, we could make it even more beautiful.
All right, so now thank you, Lindsay. Now we're going to talk about the picnic. I'm moving on because now we have 20 minutes. I know that this is probably the most important thing that you guys are going to talk about, but there are a couple other things.
Can we just get a sense of what the process for this decision will ultimately be?
Yeah. Yes. Let me come back to that at the end of the meeting when we talk about next steps. That means you can't leave until we're done. Picnic tables. There's a cluster of 3 picnic tables. And Betsy, do you want to just talk about your experience with the picnic tables? Do you know them? Okay,
the
so
ones that are there?
yeah, there are 3 picnic tables in
And
proximity
game
to the restroom. They get really beat up. They get caught on fire. They get abused horribly. Part of what we are thinking is that there is a relationship between the proximity of the picnic tables to the pavilion and the stairs. And it creates a congregation of people whose activities are less than what we would want them to be. And so we have a couple different ways of looking at it. One is to just leave them. 2 is to remove them and not replace picnic tables. I'm not saying pro or con to any of this. And then the third one is remove them and replace them in another part of the park. So you don't lose picnic table capacity, but you kind of reduce the concentration. And the location of said picnic tables, if they were replaced in another part of the park, would be up to you guys. When you come back and say, where do you want to put them? So discuss. Go ahead.
Perhaps also getting more like solid tables, and those the ones there, they aren't very strong, so it's break them just back with other hands. You're not, like, it's not getting wood and like it might cost more to get tables, but then they won't, the tables won't get destroyed.
So the suggestion is to get more bomb-proof tables. I'm speaking plainly.
I would be for moving them, because I know even the one on the other side of the pavilion that's kind of by the slide, there's only one, I think. And even moving them to the other side of the basketball court or somewhere closer to the street, so that you could, you still could have, make it more friendly to people coming to enjoy the park. Families or having it, because I don't know if you could do it by the baseball or the field on that side.
What about the more lighting as well? Like having more lighting in that area as well? And with the lighting, having like a better, like more energy efficient type lighting, so we're not using a lot of energy. Or I know certain parks too have put in like solar kind of devices to generate its own electricity.
Other comments about the picnic tables? Go ahead.
Somebody kind of touched on it earlier, but I believe replacing them, keeping them looking nice and clean, brings a better appearance to the park, helps promote a better the respect to the park, yes.
Who has not said anything? You have not said anything. I do this periodically. I don't think you said anything. I'd be interested in people who haven't really talked, kind of stepping forward and seeing. I'm assuming you have thoughts because you showed up.
Yeah. I know you were guys are talking about the tables, but I do have more place to sit. One day it's just got burned, but there is not enough place. Okay?
Oh, well, I second the bomb-proof notion, but just one overall question I have is, you probably can answer it, but I don't know the budgetary restraints here. So we're talking about $15,000 to put a fence around an object, whose roof is falling apart, and obviously needs a lot of maintenance. So I'm just interested in, framing the discussion based on the sources.
I think that has to come next. I think that if you asked us right now, we would say we don't have any money budgeted for any of this work right now. But given the response from you guys and how strongly you feel about anything, we would probably try to commit some time and energy to figuring out how to do things that you felt strongly about. Does that make sense? Is that appropriately non-committal? But clear? Go ahead.
I think moving is a good idea because it would move it out of an area that's kind of isolated, and if it's more towards the center of the park, as you wish to move them over, there'd be less like that.
There's a couple people back here that haven't really shared anything yet. Okay. Yeah.
I would be all for any kind of positive changes if you guys can enter the park and make it more. I would be all for any kind of positive changes you guys can make to the park to make it more appealing for families to actually take their kids to. Like you had lucky, you had the swimming splash center. That would be a fantastic thing to bring back, and I think by
having the kids there with their parents, it would change the culture.
That's right.
I mega second that. We
Your
want,
neighborhood chair has been reminding us.
we want a splash pad, an amenity for little kids, where where you were.
Does anybody not like the idea of a splash pad?
The city doesn't like it. It is on the city's webpage. It's specifically forbidden in all parks by the Portland Health Department.
No, that's a waiting.
No.
No, our pool in particular is listed.
No,
Because
but we want to put in a
That's a
splash,
waiting.
Andy, we want to put a splash pad there.
So different than what's there.
What's a splash pad?
It recirculates, it's a little play area in the park.
I'm gonna risk scapegoating myself to make this comment, but actually, I think that one of the problems that's in some ways larger than drinking and drugs is actually excessive cigarette smoking in the park, especially if we're talking about having kids there, and I'm really sensitive to cigarette smoke.
Excessive cigarette smoking.
Yeah, so I think it would be nice to have cigarette smoking areas and non-smoking areas perhaps in the park. I know that's going to be probably a really low popularity idea, but as someone who's really sensitive to cigarettes, and if we're talking about having picnics and having kids and having people be safe, I think it would be great to have areas of the park where there aren't cigarettes. Because it's actually more dangerous for our lungs than, pot smoke or any of the other pollutants that are going on.
So I am going to hazard that we're not really staying on the whole picnic table topic.
Oh, no, I could think the picnic tables is related to the picnic tables because people are smoking on the picnic table, so other people can't eat on them because there's cigarette smoke all over the place.
So I'm going to hazard that people I don't hear people saying you're opposed to relocating the picnic tables. I hear that people are generally would be okay with the idea of relocating them. And you guys would have a role in figuring out where that may be. Yes? Is that a fair characterization? There are two people free to speak to that.
I believe the issue of the picnic tables specifically illuminates the prejudice within Parks and Recreation, okay, against the houseless, okay? And when you're houseless, you got to have a place to go and sit sometimes, and you know what? That's going to be a park like 99% of the time. And yes, there's a group of folks that this kind of the same folks. Sometimes they change year to year, but they go and sit there in the park. And the idea that we're going to say, oh, those people, we're going to take these tables out to make them leave, I think is a pretty awful idea. What else could I add to that? That's enough. You go ahead.
I think actually where they are makes a lot of sense originally, before this issue of this is the bad zone, we got to get it out of the bad zone. If you can't really put it in the middle of the fields, because these are very often used by big field game events. I'm sure there's some places we could find that would maybe satisfy everyone's idea, but I think keeping construction and moving to a minimum and using our resources for other things is helpful. I've seen those park benches used by many different kinds of people, and when other people come to really use them, people who are not causing the problems that some people are disturbed by, it seems totally fine, and the other people go away. It's just that they're often not used, and so the people that some people are having problems with come and use them because they're a natural place there. Again, I think a lot of what I'm hearing is kind of like we're seeing behaviors we don't like, and the solution is like, get rid of any place that anyone can come and do those things, instead of let's look at how we might be able to actually interact with people and get people to move. I know a lot of these people. I was talking to a guy today, he was actually in the meeting briefly, and he's an alcoholic, and he sometimes gets into fights in the park. I don't actually see it so much, but I know it goes on, and he feels awful about it sometimes, and he's a real living human being, and when I go over there to the tables and talk to people, it's generally totally fine. And I agree with the cigarette thing. I'm always telling people, please don't smoke around Food Not Bombs. We're serving food and all this stuff. And it works. And also, I've seen so many kids there. So many families come and enjoy the park. I think there's other solutions rather than just trying to physically move the plant around. We have to learn how to talk with each other. But I think it's actually a really good place for those park benches. And I know I've seen lots of parties and events go on there, and there doesn't seem to be any problem.
That's what I was gonna say when I paused. It was, I've seen those benches used by a lot of people. Just the other day, people were just hanging out with their bicycles, all kind of things. So it's not just the people that we're afraid of, or that other folks are afraid of. I'm not afraid of them so much, but that people are afraid of.
So I'm gonna go to Cameron first because he hasn't said anything.
Thank you. I just want to be careful about some of these suggestions. I hope that we really, test them and really consider the impression that we'll have actually in action. And I would just say that I'm concerned that probably, the majority of people in this room, they don't have conflict management skills, or they don't have training in it. And so I'm just worried that we say, well, you see somebody that you feel some hostility from, or you want to confront. If someone doesn't have training, that could end up to be a concerning situation that nobody wants to see. So I want to be careful with that, and I think it's the same thing with the gating of the pavilion, with moving the benches. I personally don't think removing those things will make people disappear. There's trees everywhere, and I would know if I didn't have any other options, and I like to stay in this park, you'll find some other place. So I think there definitely is a mixture of really testing these things out and really understanding what the impact could be.
Yep. I agree with the last two speakers, Satya and your name. Let's find more sophisticated solutions.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I just put out there is this whole conversation came from the desire to really look at the fringe activities, like the things that really felt scary and outside of. We never started the conversation, nor did the neighbors come to us and say, let's remove homeless people from the park. And that has never been a presumption of what we're trying to do, nor has it been to remove the other activities. So it really was kind of this thing around the edges. So thinking about what we're talking about in that lens, so that what we're doing is creating a place where people feel like they largely can go in and enjoy the park whatever their circumstance or wherever they live. That's really what we're trying to do. So keeping that in mind, I'll let you talk, but it is 8, is it really 8:35? No, 8:22. Yeah. We have technically 7 minutes. I want to ask you guys' permission to stay for till 8:40, if that's okay. Because we want to get to next steps and give people a chance to wrap up. We had one more thing on the agenda, which was to talk about the entrance to the park at 18th, which is also, it really is one of those places that gets to some of the harder elements in the park. Do people want to continue and talk about that, or which would mean that we have to stay at least until 8:45? No. So yes, yes, yes. Okay, we're gonna go till 8:45 if you need to leave. We totally understand. Art?
And the one thing I was just gonna say is that those picnic tables have had to be replaced, which has a cost. They have significant vandalism. And I would remind folks, we have over 200 program parks in the city of Portland. We have the ability to compare the amenities and the condition of those amenities and sort of what drives the damage of those. So this is not in isolation. It's not that we're focused on, just this problem park. And what I would say is this conversation is not driven by a population as much as it is driven by behaviors that have created a strong sense of fear among people who live and sometimes visit that park. And so the picnic tables was, we don't want to take an amenity away, but we also don't want to minimize the reality. I mean, look at the tables. Go to another park and sometimes look at the tables. So I just want people to be mindful.
Yes.
It looked to me that a huge amount of damage was done by one person.
That's not the case. The park, the fence has been destroyed for the entire time.
What I mean is, in a short period of time, somebody sprayed some lighter fluid in and lit the lighter fluid inside the toilets. Yeah, there was one person.
Well,
It looked like it was one person.
multiple incidences,
Yeah.
not just one.
I think our experience is that we do regular maintenance and replacement of the picnic tables
perhaps more so than in other parks. Yeah. So and I think R makes a great point. We're not talking about populations, we're talking about behaviors. That also goes back to, we're looking at so the entrance and the stairs up to 18th, and I'm gonna actually also ask Art to kind of lead us into that.
And I guess what I would say is a couple of things. We have the Portland Police here who can also talk to this, and we have residents who I think can speak to the day-to-day reality. So, I'm going to defer some of these. So if you don't mind, can you talk about what you see going on at the stairs?
I'm Lisa. I'm a resident at the dead end of Southeast 18th Avenue. I've lived there for 3.5 years, and my partner's lived there for about 10 years. He owns the home, and we've just seen certain types of activity that have been obviously illegal. We've called non-emergency. We've not actually had to call 911 for any emergency activity, but basically the dead end there is the steps that go down into the park. There's a lot of access all the way around the park, and that is the one mostly private access to the park. So what we see summer after summer, winter after winter is transitory shelters being built on our property, on the side of the fence, on the side of the stairs, drug use, drug sales, narcotic activity, underage drinking, just regular drinking in the street, people passed out. I'm not really sure if they're okay. I go check. We call the cops. Fights, lots of yelling, violence that continues and threads its way down the stairs and over in which direction in the park. I'm not sure. That area is sort of a trifecta, as Elizabeth mentioned, the shelter, the tables, and the stairs. I don't want to shut everybody out, and I think that I personally would like to close off access to the stairs and beautify the area with more natural and native vegetation, perhaps. I feel like there is a lot of access to the park in every direction. You can enter the park in every single direction, with the exception of that stairwell if it was closed. But I just think that it might help curb some of the activity that I see on a day-to-day basis and a night-to-night basis. So,
Quick question, what's the lighting?
there's one street light right in front of our house, and it shines down onto the street. The stairway itself is very dark, and I believe there might be a light down at the end of the stairwell. So there's been discussion about lighting the stairwell.
So the stair is not up to the code. There should be sufficient lighting for the stair.
Perhaps.
And that might discourage people.
That's always our solution. I come from design.
The stairway becomes a sort of holding pattern zone for folks who are maybe not doing something they're legally allowed to be doing when they see rangers or police coming from one direction or another. And so it tends to sort of end up building there or just hanging there for, periods of time.
So I'm an architect and worked on a number of planning projects for the city of Portland over the years. It's always been my understanding there's a very, very high value placed on continuity of the street grid in Portland. Closing that access would violate that concept. I think rather than closing it, what we should look at is enhancing it. If that opening were wider, so it's not a dead end, but it actually has more flow, more ease, more visibility, it would be more likely to reduce the situation than closing it and having two places where there is dead end from both sides.
And lighting?
Sure.
Like,
Susan. You first, and Susan, and then Cameron.
I just don't think it's a matter of lighting, it's more visibility from the street. And there have been studies that have shown that the amount of lighting doesn't actually deter crime. It doesn't change the amount of crime. It's visibility from the street and from the neighbors. If the area's not visible, then people do stuff. If it's very visible, like you say, more open, then it would help.
I don't have an opinion one way or another, just a point of fact. I moved into Buckman in 1975, and I never used that entrance to the park once. I've gone to the park thousands of times, and I've never used it. For one thing, 18th doesn't go through. I mean, 18th, I live on the other side of Morrison, and 18th doesn't connect between Belmont and Morrison. So it's not, I appreciate what you're saying about the grid very much, but the grid doesn't go through because of the telecom building that's in between. So, so I just want to point that out. I've never used the stairs once.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to ditto that issue. I don't think like it creates a scarcity of amenities, because only if you're living on Belmont, on that specific area, does it really make it easier for you to get in the park. Otherwise, you're going to have to...
Two homes there.
That's
all. That want to lock it
Two.
Exactly, they want to lock it up. And if you're, having accessibility issues, the staircase is just like, it doesn't really solve any issue for accessibility for people. And then I think maybe it's a kind of expensive process, but I think that if you do want to keep that access area, you want to keep the grid, maybe create a slope. That way it's not an area that turns into a congregation because people can't really sit on the terrace. But, yeah.
So you're kind of saying take out the stairs?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Go ahead.
For lighting things, and I'm not trying to be black and white about it. Oh, that's kind of like a pun almost. But I'm really concerned about light pollution. I think in most of the city there's just so much excessive lighting, it's out of hand, and I really would be wonderful to see the stars a little more. So that's not to compromise anyone's safety, but as Dustin pointed out, there's a lot of studies that show it doesn't necessarily make anything safer. So we really should be careful before we just throw lights everywhere, assuming that it's going to make it better, because it really makes it uglier in a lot of ways. So I'm really against lighting whenever it's not absolutely necessary. I want to put that out there.
Years ago, I lived out East County, further out east, and we were having vandalism problems at the grade schools and also high schools. And they tried a pilot program, and they shut the lights off at night. Vandalism went down. Police here maybe could answer that, whether that's true or whether they still have that program.
You guys have any thoughts on that?
They tried that.
Generally contradictory to what I've ever heard. I've never heard of it when it's darker, it's less issues.
But I think the biggest thing is the visibility. I mean, it's just whether it's lighting or whether it's the vegetation that you have, it's just like your house. You have big bushes around your windows, that's going to be an excellent point of entry because we can't see it from the street. So I think the visibility is bigger than the lighting issue.
So, I'm going to kind of move us into next steps, if that's okay. Do you want to make a comment?
I have a general comment. I can make it next steps.
How do you know I'm going to let you talk about it?
I have one quick comment about the pavilion.
Okay.
And then I'll be done. Art mentioned going and looking at other parks, specific, other picnic tables. And as far as the pavilion is concerned, I took a picture of the pavilion in Powell Park, and you can see the gates that are there. And just, obviously for Food Not Bombs, the pavilion affects us the most. But I also thought, for just the sake of the neighbors, do you want to look at a barred up, pavilion, kind of looks like a big jail in the middle of the park. If anybody wants to see this up close. And then I think the issue of shitting in the pavilion, it was mentioned, and there's bathrooms very clearly lit on both sides, and I don't know why people have to go in the pavilion if there's bathrooms there unless they're locked. So, just wanted to, yeah, well, I don't know if it was locked when I took my picture, but I know they probably get locked. Yeah. Does anybody want to look at this up close? Yeah. Can I start? Pass it around. Who wants to look? Who wants to start first? 26 and tall. Okay.
Yeah, I think she's right. Having bars on the windows is kind of a downer. It's kind of barren, and it's alienating. There's enough alienation out there without putting bars on that, and it's also, we're defeated. 1% of the population, or whatever, 2%, or the drunks, or whatever you want to call it, made it so that we have to have this fortress-looking shelter house. it's kind of, that's sort of depressing that they would bring everybody this level down. You're supposed to find the people that are up and try to raise up, not go down. And it's sort of like, okay, we can't deal with this, so we're going to bar it up. We lose.
So, next steps. Our lovely friend Tanya back there is going to type up all the notes from this conversation. And the last time we did a sign-up sheet, I had a problem with people not receiving emails about this meeting notice. So I'm going to say, and I'm committing you to this now, that we will, if you give us your contact information tonight, if you do not receive an email from me by Friday, it means that I tried to send you something and it didn't go through. So for whatever reason, your penmanship's not great, our eyesight isn't great, our computers are funky. If you don't receive something from us as follow-up by Friday, feel free to contact me. I have a handful of cards here, or you can find me on Urban Parks, but it was late. But I can give you my email address if you want it. Now they're not. So that's our commitment. So if you don't hear from us by the end of the week, it means that we are unable to contact you, and we tried to follow up if you gave us your contact information. If you don't give us your email address, then you can go, we'll actually create a website and put it on the website. So the second thing is, what we will do, and this is what I generally tell people, is that we're going to type this stuff up and kind of sort it and look for emerging themes. I think one of the very clear emerging themes from this is there is a community organizing engagement piece that we are not fully fleshing out. And so the next thing that we'll commit to doing is following up with trying to pull together a way to have that conversation about what is the community stuff that we need to do. And as I said, we don't necessarily have a bank account for this project right now, so we have some space to actually explore other ways of addressing some of these issues and concerns. And so we will organize some time and place for people to get together and talk about what are the community-based solutions that we would all be willing to take a role in, because community-based solutions do not work if nobody shows up. Just a little point of fact. So people need to be willing to step into that. And then we will also kind of summarize everything else we heard, put it together with the parks planners and what they know about how things work within parks, what Art knows about how things work within parks, what Lieutenant Ford knows about how things work with parks. And then I would like to ask to use the space at the neighborhood association meeting to maybe come back and continue this conversation. Is that possible?
We're not meeting in August.
I don't think we'll be ready that soon.
For September, be fine.
Okay.
Right, Chris?
Yeah, we also have an alternate date that you want to have work on.
Okay.
We have that space.
We have the main meeting is the second Thursday of every month, and the land use meeting, or what could be for this, is the third Thursday, and that's the one that you used before.
Okay. So we will commit to having another follow-up conversation with folks about, okay, here's everything we've heard, we kind of sorted it. Here's some things that we see we can have happen to move forward. And I think what makes sense is maybe just doing something in park and getting together and sitting around and talking about the park.
In the park, yes. I agree.
While the weather's still nice.
We all hate being in parks, right? I just want to add, I actually don't live in the neighborhood, this is the park lot, I live in Northeast. But I'm big into volunteering, and even if there's some tables that are salvageable, or basic landscaping we can do, like if there's a community gathering that's posted on Facebook, getting people power as opposed to trying to find money, I think we can make some major improvements, and I'd be more than willing to come.
Go to the annex.
Oh, Art, what'd you just whisper in my ear?
So one of the things that Parks utilizes that really is incredibly beneficial is friends groups. And so we have over 118 friends groups of parks, and in fact, it's a lot of the partnerships that help with the improvements and help keep the park safe. An example is Mount Tabor. Dave Hillman and a group of volunteers, they volunteer in that park. They do things such as, have a foot patrol, but they do gardening. They've helped fundraise for amenities. and they've been going strong for 13 years. And what I would say is, with all the folks in this room, obviously you're passionate about the park, you're passionate about what you think, and I think that coalescing around a friends group and really building on the idea is exactly the kind of thing that speaks volumes to folks who might necessarily, for one reason or another, have be of the same mind, for whatever reason. So I think that would be a great idea.
So when we get together in the park to talk about community-based things, I will bring information on friends groups. So that's what we have for this evening.
I think it's really important to understand the socioeconomic issues facing Buckman that haven't been talked about except alluded to. Buckman is over 85% rental, and that affects who has energy to put time in the community. The Food Not Bombs is one of the few groups of people that draws upon the whole city that puts positive energy in the community. But from the community itself, unlike Mount Tabor, which is 95% home ownership, Buckman has less than 20%. When I first moved here, 80% of the population lived below poverty. That's changed, but not that significantly. It's still one of the poorest neighborhoods in all of the city. So we have to look at that and think about that. When you ask for resources from the community, I gave my time. I've done my time. I've risked my life and still do. I'm right now the only person who came forward on the latest violent assault. You gotta ask for resources from the city. It can't just come from this community. Susan and I know each other well. I used to be chair before Susan. It's really hard to get resources in the community. Really, really hard. It needs to also come from the city.
Well, that friends of the park doesn't have to be from people just in the neighborhood.
That's right.
Anyone.
That's right, exactly.
But, and I think, yeah. So, we have a couple minutes left, and I just want to open it up to whatever you guys want to do with that couple minutes. And if we're not done, I'll let you talk as soon, And so, just a few, we'll take just, 5 more minutes, and anybody can say whatever they want. It would be very helpful for me and for us to hear what worked, what didn't work, and what you would have liked to have seen that you didn't see. Go ahead.
I don't know what the impact was on Food Not Bombs, but I just don't want to leave the meeting without saying that the presence of the park rangers and the commitment of the police department to our calls over the last year has made a definite impact on the park and the livability of the neighborhood. And I don't want to walk out of here without acknowledging that the hard work, you guys answered our questions, answered our calls, and we appreciate it. And I'm not a big fan of the cops, no offense.
I'm going to say the same thing. I think that's really, that's kind of where this all started from. We, neighbors of the park, publicly want to just really thank the police and the rangers. I am no longer having my sister or my family sister arrested 3 to 4 times a night, a week, from violence. So I just, and the response has been quicker. It's just much more peaceful. And we're enjoying our summer. We're actually enjoying the park as a family, so thank you.
So something that's been alluded to several times during this meeting has been this conflict between systemic problems that are much, much broader than this neighborhood or even the city, that seem to be the root of many of the problems that we're facing, and Band-Aid solutions that will at the very best shove those problems over 2 blocks as opposed to actually solving them, or, and most likely won't even shove them over 2 blocks but just move them to somewhere else within the park. And I think one of the most important ones that I haven't heard mentioned is the crisis of public space in this entire country. There is, in the past century, there's been a demolition of public space, and even these parks aren't what public space used to mean. They're closed off at night, they're highly patrolled, they're highly regulated. And I think a lot of what we're seeing is, since there is no public space, any public activities that need to happen for one reason or another are all shoved in together, sometimes into confines that aren't that comfortable. And the one worst way to try to address that problem is to reduce public space and gating off a pavilion is a great example of reducing public space and therefore just exacerbating the problem, both in the park and in other places in the city.
Very interesting. I just want to remind everyone that we have a shared responsibility to create the type of space that we want. So if you want a safe space, you want it to be fun and healthy and all of that, and you see something that's happening, grab a friend, grab 6 friends, whatever, go say something to somebody, go do fun things in the park, and just create it. We have a mutual responsibility to co-create the space that we want to have.
I want to thank Food Not Bombs for doing this tonight too, for being here. And
Thank you very much.
Speaking your voice to Dallas.
I was going to say I'm really moved by having this meeting and having such a large presence from Food Not Bombs at this meeting. And I think that something we're facing is something that society is going to start facing more and more, which is the intersection of the haves and the have-nots, or whatever we want to call these different groups of people that perhaps would like to turn their back on the other and say the other doesn't exist. But what we're seeing outside of ourselves is also within ourselves, and we're not going to have peace within ourselves until we have, peace within our community as a whole, the whole of our whole world. So this is like it's a huge conversation, and even though we're looking at it in the microcosm of this one park, what we're really looking at is the huge societal issue we have right now of the fact that we can't just say those people are over there, we don't want to see them, anymore. And as hard as it is, and as much as all of us want to have peace, and not have to look at violence in our daily lives, which I totally understand, and I don't want that either, I think we actually need to turn towards these things because they're not going to go away, and until we actually, I like the idea of having some kind of conflict resolution, intentional discussions and communications between people, and actually turning towards the fire, turning towards the issues, so that we can start to build those communities where people are heard.
I just want to comment on that because I said this before. One of the things that impressed me about one of our first conversations was people were really focused when they were talking about problems about very specific behaviors, and they weren't talking about people. They said, I don't want to feel unsafe. I don't want people carousing. I don't want to have to break up a fight and get threatened because of that. And I think that one of the things I'm hearing in this conversation is threads of that. And I really appreciate Food Not Bombs being here, and because people are suggesting solutions that they don't necessarily understand fully the impacts of, and that's why it's really important to have the conversation with each other. Because when you say, oh, do this, I thought it was really interesting when we talked about moving the picnic tables. Somebody came and said, oh, but it has this impact. And we can only do that if we talk to each other. So I would hope that we can continue to do that.
Definitely. I think that's really going to be the ongoing, evolving solution that's going to happen slowly over time, to continue to have these conversations where we're all in the same room.
Other things before I leave this one?
I'm glad I came. I found it on Facebook. A lot of my friends are involved with Food Not Bombs, and I've been a couple times. But I didn't know what to expect, and I've only had positive experiences in the park, but I had no idea the residential issue and the nighttime thing, and it's really saddening to hear. And of course I see the benches, and I'm like, did someone just take an axe to that? Like, how'd that happen? But that there were even larger concerns for the surrounding community. So I'm glad that I came not really knowing, if I was supporting Food Not Bombs or if I was supporting the park. And I'm sorry for the residents that are there that have had to deal with this. Hopefully, those scary situations, those unsafe situations, I can't imagine. So, yeah, I'm glad we're having a conversation.
Underneath the pavilion, there is a mandala, and the mandala is a labyrinth. And there's a woman, Andrew told me, that comes and paints it once every several months. She's been keeping it up for a long time, and we don't know who originally put it there. The symbology of the labyrinth is that as you walk the path and you get towards the center and you come back out, it puts you in touch with your source. And my fear is that gating the pavilion would lock us out from being able to connect with our source. And that would be symbolic of our community not being able to connect with itself as well. So I'm hoping that this meeting gives us a chance to see each other's faces and to talk and mingle more and be able to connect with each other and to be able to save our access to that source that we have within ourselves and that we share with each other.
Just want to say thanks to Michael. He's one of the cooks tonight, and he has 16 years of experience as a professional chef.
I just want to say that I love that we are wrapping up with so much positive energy. Keep it coming, keep it consistent. We've had really great facilitation. We have a really great park rangers manager. Whose rangers? Our rangers. And I'm sending him good vibes because he's probably going to end up at Mount Tabor later on today. But I hope this stays consistent, this good energy, this interaction, and we keep having this community. Thank you.
I just want to put a little bit more attention. It was already mentioned on that the park is a public space where we come out of our isolated spaces to meet people who are very often dangerous, and also homeless people are going there to meet you, homeowners. We are one society where park is a place to meet.
Pavel is an architect educated in Europe about architecture.
Well, to add to this, the designing of space might be a solution to many social problems. Architecture back in Europe is not just designing buildings, but designing society, engineering. So, one more thing. After talking for 2 hours about park, we still don't know who owns it. I find out who is imposing the rules, or rather, who is imposing the rules, who is trying to make people abide by the rules. You are the security representative. And also I find out a little bit about budget, but there should be more question about where the money, because the park was designed probably 100 or more years ago. And it changes over time, and it will be changing. We are just in this very moment of time and space where certain problems became accumulated, and somehow they push for decision to design, provide more positive design for that space.
Anyone want to take it? Wait, try to answer the question about who owns the park. It's not a trick question.
We do.
Really?
Nobody owns the park. We use the park.
Who is the city? Who pays the taxes? Who lives here? Come on. I mean, if you don't pay the taxes, I mean, I guess you don't own it, but I mean.
All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to get an answer to the question that was asked earlier. What would be the process of putting bars on the pavilion? What would be the?
It's not designed yet, that process. I will answer the question in the forms of any movement towards the pavilion, or really moving picnic tables or any of these other things would come back to you guys, and you would be informed prior to any such things would happen. So it's iterative, the best I can do. But, you know, I can go home tonight and figure it out.
I don't think those are high impact decisions.
Yeah.
I kind of already feel like the pavilion's never going to be gated.
Don't make any assumptions.
Don't.
That's why we come to these meetings.
Yes, thank you. You can make prophecies, I agree with her. That's my intuition too. Yeah. Sure.
That is going to leave a track. But my concern is with kids, with dogs, and people on blankets. And also, recently I observed ATVs. And that's another issue. Vehicles are not supposed to be in a park. I don't care if you're a ranger, if you're the cop. Park your vehicle outside. Walk in. you walk in, you can be more efficient too.
Yeah.
Your car can sit on the outskirts. People can see your cars. They know the ranger's here, the cop's here, but you won't threaten any kids or any animals or anyone picnicking. That was my concern when I saw it today.
No vehicles in the park.
I'm going to wrap this up, especially if people have spoken more than once. Susan's gonna
Make an announcement.
oh, wait, she has an announcement. Before we wrap it up, I do want to give Lieutenant Fort an opportunity to speak, because he hasn't said anything, and I think
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks for those who appreciate us, and some do and some don't. It's, I've been a police officer here for 22 years almost, and we have seen a lot of differences in the way we police things. It is significantly different and better now, I think, than it was when I first started. Again, contrary to potentially some popular belief. We are here specifically to hear all of you. We've heard from some of you about what you want us to police. There's all kinds of laws, and you can say that it's it's not lawful for vehicles in the park. Also, not lawful to drink, not lawful to do drugs. It's not lawful to do all kinds of things. Some things are policed more. Some things are more important to you all for us to police, and some are not. That's what we're here to listen to, hear what you want us to police. We work for you. We know that. Very much aware of that. But we work for all of you. And our challenge is to balance the needs of everyone. The people who live there, the people who come there, the people who use it in a variety of different ways, whether they may live there for no fault of their own. And our challenge as law enforcement is to balance those needs of everyone. The police are not going to solve the social issues, nor do we pretend to. Well, we address behaviors that are important for the community, whichever community that is that we are serving. And for Colonel Summers, that's this community. That's you all. And what I'm happy to see is that diversity of people and diversity of thoughts, and from where you all come from, it's enlightening to me. And I've written some notes down. This is not, this is a different meeting. This is more of an environmental or an engineering type of meeting. I'm fully aware of that. So I've been largely quiet. At a different time or different meeting, maybe a Buckman meeting, maybe that gets on the agenda, something like that, we have another discussion about policing and what you expect from your police. So I'm happy to, I'll stick around a little bit afterward, but probably outside where it's a little cooler.
Right on.
As far as I know, they
and we're gonna let her wrap it up and
I want to make an announcement. You're all invited, please put this on your calendar, for the 4th annual Buckman Picnic in the Park, sponsored by the Buckman Community Association, your neighborhood association. And there will be free food, there will be a themed bouncy castle, not a castle, a bouncy, what is it, Greg?
No, it's a bouncy.
A bouncy castle, there'll be a bungee run, there'll be activities, it'll be music, there'll be a band, and it's all free, and there'll be door prizes and a whole lot of fun. Sunday, August 11th, from 4 to 8 p.m. in Colonel Summers Park at the Pavilion. Yay!
You guys, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you Food Not Bombs for feeding us and taking care of us. Thank you everybody for bringing such great energy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.